So I had promised my parents that I would help them clean the attic, which was full of junk. Most of it was my junk. I was almost done when I noticed this box laying in the corner. I went through the box, mostly stuff I'd throw away, but in the bottom, I found this. On this cassette tape was the very first recording I had ever done. So at the time, my band Fairwind had a few songs, and we recorded them in the basement of a friend's house. And I hadn't heard these songs in decades. I was super excited to dive in and see how much progress I had made. Went back home, put the tape in the player, and got ready to go down memory lane. First song comes on. I remember that one. I remember those riffs being so much fun to play. And also remember that I had left a little bit of space to improvise the solo. This is gonna be good. Check out the next song. Here comes the solo. Wait, that sounds decent. After listening to a few songs, I realized that all the solos I was playing were pretty predictable, kind of boring. That would have been okay if I hadn't realized the shocking truth. The guitar playing I was hearing on that 25-year-old tape sounded exactly the way my guitar playing sounds today. That meant that I had spent over 2 decades practicing hard to master this thing, only to find out that I had made no progress. This really bothered me. I had to do something about it. So I used my special power, active listening. So I listened to the rest of the tape. I also listened to some recent recordings and discovered that the reason I sounded so predictable, so boring in a way, was that every single lick I was playing was heavily influenced by finger comfort. See, most licks that I was using were found in the first position of the minor pentatonic scale, which is a very useful scale, but it's also a very comfortable scale to play. It's a very simple position to memorize. You don't have to do crazy, weird extensions, and it sounds pretty good. But because of that, I had fallen into that trap, the comfort trap. Everything I played was basically a clone. All my solos sounded exactly the same. I was overusing those comfortable licks that originally sounded good, but eventually got really stale. And that had been my problem for over 25 years. So I got to work memorizing new licks, new scales, and called it fate. But as I was working on this ad came on TV.
Hey, stop what you're doing right now. If you play guitar and you feel stuck, you need to pay very close attention. Our team of extremely talented scientists are about to completely revolutionize guitar playing, and we want you to be our next success story. We developed a revolutionary new tool that hooks up to your arm and lets you play the cool notes. Call 1-800-I-DON'T-SUCK right now for a free trial. That's 1-800-I-DON'T-SUCK.
Now that was really bizarre, and I was gonna fall for it, so I called the number. Now the guy on the phone told me that after years of successfully helping people stop smoking, their team was expanding to other markets. And then he told me about this new machine they had developed, and they wanted to do clinical trials on guitar players. I thought it was a terrible idea, so I signed up. So I show up to the address. The guy brings me to the back, shows me the machine, and starts calibrating it on me. So I went back home, plugged in the machine, and turned on the Fingomatic. The machine was supposed to prevent me to playing a predictable note. I started with a very simple minor pentatonic run. And man, after just a few notes, the Fingomatic seemed to know exactly what I was gonna play next, and it prevented me to do that. It was so weird. It was almost as if there were this invisible force preventing my finger to go to the note I really wanted to play. I actually tried. I tried hard. There was no way I could bypass the machine. So I did what the guy told me to do. I picked another note, and lo and behold, the Fingomatic let me play that note. It was so weird, but it did what it was intended to do. So I stopped fighting the machine and kept practicing. Now, I'm not gonna lie, it was pretty unmusical at first, but it was also really eye-opening. So the fact that I was physically unable to play a predictable note showed me how predictable my playing had been for so many years. Eventually, I decided to start planning my phrases to try to beat the machine. See, if I was able to play a series of notes without the Fingomatic anticipating what I was gonna play, I won the game. So there's a lot of visualizing the fretboard, anticipating my moves, and then replicating what I had thought of using my fingers. Now, the positions were really odd and strange at first, which proved that my playing had been so influenced by comfort. I kept at it. Eventually, my phrases were a little smoother, the transitions between the notes were a little more natural, and it really helped me engage my mind to what I was playing. I did that for a couple weeks until it was time to take the glove off. First thing I did was to throw in a backing track. And this was interesting because as soon as my hand was free from the Fingomatic, it started holding the guitar as if it was gonna go back to the old ways. But I quickly reminded myself why I was doing that. I recalibrated my hand and started planning ahead my moves, making sure that what I was going to play was not influenced by comfort. And I had to take my time. And I found that forcing myself not to play the very first thing that came to mind was key for me to create new things. So I visualized the series of notes I was gonna play, and while doing that, I also tried to mentally hear the notes that would result in fretting those frets. I took a deep breath and went for it. I'm gonna tell you right now that it was a real mental game. I was really fighting against my fingers' tendency to go back to those old, tired blues licks. And man, it worked. What I was playing was nothing like I had been playing for all these years. And eventually it did get more musical. And any time I was falling back into the old ways, I had to remind myself that music should come from here, not from there. Now, there's still something wrong with my playing. While my phrases were less predictable, fresh, new, it didn't sound as natural as the way I was playing prior to using the glove. Thankfully, I was able to fix that clumsiness with a very weird twist in the position of my left hand. I mean, all it took was shifting. You know what? Watch this video. I'll tell you all about that right here.